Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today is our very first episode of the Move Forward or Move On. So a couple little housekeeping items before we get started. Yes, everyone is on mute right now. That's part of the webinar format. And once we get going, I'm going to unmute or open up the option for you to unmute yourselves so that if you do have any questions of our expert panel today, that you will have the ability to do so. So thank you all for joining us and being with us this afternoon. A great way to start your week on moving forward or moving on. So the change from 2022 to 2023 brings an opportunity to really wipe the slate clean and move forward with momentum, moving on from that dreaded fear. So the goal with this monthly series is to identify what industry pros are seeing here locally and give guidance or advice on what is working and what market indicators are proving for their businesses. So we know that we can't fix the challenges that are beyond our control, nor can we change the media narrative. But what we can do is highlight the positive strategies and insights for a more can-do attitude, which ultimately leads to more satisfied clients and a more collaborative dynamic with other industry professionals. So I'm going to introduce you to our industry experts today on our panel. We have Kirsten Childers, Shandy Benor, and Megan Lowe, and each one of them are going to give you just a brief little bio of their experience and time in the industry. And then we're going to get started with our highlighted question that they're each going to be addressing today. And again, I'm going to be monitoring the chat during the presentation, and you will as well have the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. So ladies, Kirsten, I'm going to start with you just to give an introduction on yourself.
Okay, so like Raquel said, I'm Kirsten Childers, and I am with Sierra Sotheby's International Realty. I've been in the industry as a realtor for 7 years. Prior to this, I was in development and assisted living. So I really love the evolving market, and it always keeps us on our toes.
Thank you. Shandy, you're next.
Hi, my name is Shandy Benor. I am working for Coldwell Banker Select Real Estate, and I've been licensed since October of 2015. During my beginning years in real estate, I was trained under Candace Meyer, who is well known within our community, and I felt like she really gave me a strong footing of the law when it comes to real estate contracts, and just my ethical compass is really strong. Prior to being a real estate agent, I worked in customer service and ran warehouse operations for a warehouse here in town. And yeah, that's the scoop on me.
And mom extraordinaire with 2 sick kids today.
Oh yeah, that's fun. So you hear them. That's what's going on in my house. It's chaos.
Okay, Megan.
I'm Megan Lowe. I work with Chase International here in DeMonte, Reno, and I've actually been in it for 12 years now, if my math serves right. I got in right in 2010. So the controversy of what the bottom was is arguable, but it's right there. So when I got into it, it could only go up. So kind of seen it cruise right up, which has been definitely a roller coaster of all the different constant changes, which has always made it fun.
Well, that is a perfect lead in to our very first question today that we're going to talk about, that Kirsten's going to be addressing, and that is really navigating this new market that we are in and just the shift between what we've experienced the past 2 years prior and where we are now. So Kirsten, you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing and experiencing and navigating today's market?
So really, we just have to remember that the market is constantly changing, and it's just different. We saw this little lull in the market, and I want to remind people that consistency is key to success in any market. And I heard a little, lull and, a bit of panic in some agents, in their voice the last couple of months, and there really doesn't need to be. There's no need to go looking for new business when it's right in front of you. And I want to remind people that Did anyone think to go check on their buyers from the last 2 years of this craziness that we just saw? We all know those were very, very different times. So we were in a lockdown, from the pandemic, and things could have changed now. So things opened back up. And so what does that look like for homeowners that we just sold houses to in the last 2 years? Some had to make quick decisions, rush decisions, waiving contingencies. They bought sight unseen. Did they feel rushed? And do they love that home that they thought was the one? They simply could have just made the wrong purchase. So, don't forget to go and check up on them. And they're right in front of our nose, and make sure that you build that relationship and stay consistent with that. Just because we recently just sold them a home doesn't mean that things haven't changed on their end.
Well, and I saw today that Tahoe has record snow levels that we've never seen. So we have a lot of people that have relocated to Northern Nevada that may not have realized the amount of snow that we actually can receive in the winter months. That may have them second guessing that decision, or maybe they have that north facing driveway that is ginormous, that they're decided that it's not quite so much fun in the wintertime. So you're right. It's a great opportunity to reconnect and check in with those clients and make sure they are truly happy with where they're at.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So Shandy, do you want to talk a little bit about inventory in the market and some of what you're experiencing related to that?
Sure. So I want to throw some stats out there for everyone, just so we are all on the same page. So when we're looking at our inventory in December of 2022 and compare it against December of 2021, December 22, we have 2.7 months worth of inventory. In 2021, we had 0.7 months worth of inventory. So we hear those numbers and it's like, woohoo, look at all this inventory we have. But when I look at it, I'm digging deeper and I'm seeing that total sales year over year is down a little over 40%. So when you hear that number and then look at the inventory levels, do we really have that much more inventory, or sales did they just decrease to a level where it's artificially inflated our inventory levels? Right now, I've been talking to a lot of buyers that are investors, and these are what I refer to as the mom and pop investor. They don't have a ton of doors, but they want to get into that mailbox money game. And I'm also still working with buyers that are coming over from California. So when we couple those two categories of buyers, as well as the everyday buyer and seller in our market, the inventory isn't enough. We know that new construction starts are down 30%. So that's just inflating this inventory gap that we are going to continue to see as we move into our spring and summer months. So my advice to any agents out there would be this is a relationship business. Check in with your clients, like Kirsten said. How are they doing? Give them the information. And what I like to do is provide them with the data and then have a conversation based off of that, and not try to put fear in the conversation or rush them, but help them make an educated decision that is going to, improve their financial future, because I do believe in the real estate investment. I also just want to say that this is, again, a relationship business. Provide the tools to your clients to make the best decision for them.
Okay, thank you, Shandy. So Megan, with that, talking about buyers and what advice you are giving your buyer clients, and just coming off of what Shandy is talking about with the inventory, is the perfect segue leading into the buyers.
Yeah, I think both of them touched perfectly on the overall consensus is to educate your clients, build that trust. Once you have trust with your clients, they're lifetime clients. And going full circle, check back in with them constantly, follow them on Facebook. So if you see something that is happening in their lives, just quick text messages go a long ways. And you think you're being obnoxious and bugging them, but a lot of times they love it. So kind of just bringing that full trust is going to be the most. So the conversations I'm having with my buyers right now is letting them know that this market's giving them time to think on things. It's letting them look at all the information. It's giving them negotiation powers. And I'm reminding them of what it would have looked like 2 years ago. Some of the clients I'm working with right now were kind of dabbling in it 2 years ago, last year, and some of them weren't. So educating them of what it could be with what it is. And a lot of people still don't realize you can ask sellers for closing costs. You can ask sellers for buy downs. You can ask sellers for a lot of other things, and just what they're asking for, put the offer in. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's see if we can make it work, and not being afraid of that. Personally, I think this is a better market because I don't like the rush. If I was a consumer, I wouldn't want to be rushed. So I kind of re-educated them on that stance as well.
Well, and I'm going to speak to the rush. I had to make a purchase last summer that was one of those really rushed purchases, and we knew that there were repairs and things that needed to be made, but there really was an opportunity for us to be able to discuss and negotiate those repairs. And I was well aware of that, but it really wasn't something that was an open discussion. So I do think that now having that opportunity to really engage with your clients and them to understand the value and the power in having that option to have those discussions, have those negotiations are truly a positive, and really what the real estate market normally should include is that conversation and dialogue.
Yeah, we're really just moving more towards a balanced market where buyers and sellers have the opportunity to negotiate, whereas before there wasn't much negotiation going on. Now we're able to close deals with 3% seller credits, maybe higher. And that's a really good feeling. And sellers want to hear from buyers. So I think just encouraging, the media out there, they have this like doom and gloom scenario on housing, and it really affects us on every single level. And we just have to get out there in the field and show the clients the property. And that kind of leads me to another point of how to navigate when we do have more inventory and all of a sudden your buyer wants to look at 20 houses, 15 houses. I always tend to put a limit on how many houses I am showing a buyer in a single day, because I think it gets really overwhelming and they all start to look and feel the same. So I tend to look at no more than 8 houses, and that's really max. I think 6 is that sweet spot for me. So maybe it's a showing weekend instead of just a mad dash in one day, and you're looking at all the listings in their price point, which that's really exhausting for everybody.
Agreed.
Well, I also want to talk about how important those partnerships are and why having our lenders is such a key part of this picture. Because as you're showing your clients these 8 homes and you're looking at these different negotiation terms, those lender partners are what really help that picture and looking at for your client the best case scenario. And maybe the higher price isn't necessarily a bad thing if they're able to negotiate those terms. So those partnerships, relationships are also a very important part of this overall picture right now in the new market, looking at these different inventory levels and also in providing those buyer educational pieces.
That's a good point. And for the last 3, I've had to call the lender and go back and forth like 8 different times before we submitted an offer. And also just going back to the basics, reminding your clients that you may be approved for this much, but as long as you decide what's the most comfortable payment you are worth, then work backwards. And then it's not a scary market, because that's the most important, is that constant payment. So as long as you stay within there. So that's what I've really just keep reiterating. And as agents, just reminding them of that. Don't look at what you can afford, look at that payment, and then that never will change. And then that's not as scary with whatever the market would do.
I agree, because that is they know right where their sweet spot is from a monthly payment standpoint. So that is a great place to be. And then being able to look backwards from that rather than projecting an overall price and hoping that it fits within their scenario.
Yeah, this is a relationship business, and just having that open line of communication with all the parties involved, the lender, the buyer, and absolutely the listing agent. We need to just start all communicating with each other like before. In that craziness, everything's over text message and get it done as quick as you can, but we need to get back to basics of just calling the listing agent, having those conversations beforehand before anyone starts spinning their wheels, and have a better understanding of what both parties are really looking for.
Right. Just take a minute to slow down. And like you said, go back to basics and through the process.
I think the media is trying to portray this whole fear of this market crash and what's going to happen with pricing and inventory, when in actuality, I feel like where we were at before was far more fearful. It was the race to be able to get those offers in, not really knowing how much over asking the offer needed to be in at, and what contingencies needed to be removed in order to have the offer even looked at. So that to me is far more fearful than now.
Exactly.
Well, and one thing, I mean, I'm sure not everyone on here is going to agree with me, because I know a lot of lenders are pushing it, saying, oh, just refinance later, refinance later. We don't know what's going to happen later.
Right.
So again, going with that monthly payment and just saying they might have the option, but I'm just seeing a lot of lenders push this like, okay, well, later you could, but like, we really don't know. And we're there we're there just to educate and not make that decision and push. And so, that's a big thing that I feel like could be worked on in our industry. It's just coming up with other ways to make them feel comfortable.
Sure. And I think from a lender side, if they are pushing the refinance down the line, well, what does that cost? And what does that process look like? Because it's just better to know ahead of time before you're like, yeah, I'll just refinance. Like, well, what does that look like for you? What does that
But some
cost?
of them are pushing free.
Right.
So
but that's a conversation that needs to be had. And we need to make sure that we bring that up so they know long-term what that looks like.
Sure. And what questions to ask, because if it is free, great. But if it's not free, then they should know.
Exactly.
So I do have this opened up for our attendees. So if they have any questions that they would like our panel today, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. So while they're thinking of their questions, I have a question that I'm going to ask. So are any of you seeing any sweet spots in the market price point wise that seem to be more of a hot spot right now over others?
I would say for a buyer, they should really take a look at what new construction is offering, what sort of incentives. Because if somebody wants a brand new home, they are offering a lot of incentives for buyers right now. So I think it's good to kind of look at that category. I had a condo listing at 195, and then I had a luxury listing that was over $1 million. Tons of showings on the luxury listing, not that many showings on my condo at 195. So I don't know if there's a sweet spot. Sure wouldn't it be what I thought it was.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a shift as well in the stuff that's been sitting around for the last 60 days, which was through the holiday, through all of these snowstorms and everything like that. They're now getting like some multiple offers. I was just in one on Thursday with one of my listings, and I'm hearing more and more of that buzz just in the last 3 or 4 days talking to agents. So we could be embarking on another shift.
Right.
Well, this is the historic slow time. So now's the time to focus on getting the things out of the way, your CE classes, getting yourself organized, getting all that stuff, and don't let the little lull get you down. Just keep staying busy on other stuff, because we know it will pick right back up. I always say after Super Bowl is when things get busy again. So any day now.
Yeah, or go on vacation.
Yeah,
I'm doing both of those.
Well, and truly our weather has made it more challenging for people that are coming over the hill, or even the people that are just here in town, that it just the urgency for looking at homes, the urgency for having those discussions on listing their home really hasn't been there. So I think as the weather begins to subside and things start lightening up a little bit, that we are going to see more of that influx happening.
And that creates pent up demand, right? So the people who visited for holiday and things like that, they're now going to revisit, and there's going to be more people out there looking.
Yeah.
And I have lots of buyers that just feel like there's nothing, I feel like inventory is still low. So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of options.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of options.
And I'm sure that all three of you have had clients telling you they're just going to wait until spring to list.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Me, when I was on and listed with some random.
Okay, let's see. Do we have any questions?
Hey, everybody, this is Marika Moore. This is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I have a question. So with all of this talk of the changing market, I have buyers, some that see the drop in price since last summer and they want to take advantage of it. But then I have some that are saying they want to wait till the prices get lower. And there's a point where I feel like they could stop getting lower soon, and I don't want them. I'm trying to balance between, urgency and not rushing them, but also letting them know realistically, we don't want to miss this part where they may start rising again.
Show them how many
doing that?
pending went in their price point in the last month versus what it was the month before, so they can see the data and see what, like Kirsten's saying, where we're seeing multiple offers. I had multiple buyers that were waiting on a house, and we finally were ready to write, and there was multiple offers on it.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, just educating
Again,
them.
you have to educate them with data, because and they because like even though we believe they trust us, I mean, data speaks volume, so that helps a lot.
Right. So as soon as those houses that you look at go pending, email them, text them, let them know that went pending now, that's off the list, that kind of thing. So they can see the momentum, actually for their own eyes.
Okay. Thank you. I like that.
And I would also communicate with the listing agent and see, like, throw out a number and see if she would go back to her clients or write the offer and see if they counter you, because maybe they're in a position where they would accept a low ball offer, because we really haven't seen prices go down as much as the media and buyers were hoping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, prices are maintaining, they're holding,
Mhm.
and sellers are maintaining. So
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Well, and that really addresses one of the questions that came in on the chat too, and answering the questions that buyers have on, will the prices continue dropping? And that's the thing, we don't have a magic crystal ball, but like you said, taking the data that's out there to be able to provide that information to them on really what is happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, because oh, sorry, go ahead, Raquel.
No, I was just going to add, and I think the other part is that we've got to really pay attention to what's happening in our own local markets, because what's being put out there in the media is a generalization of what's being overall provided in data that can be skewed very differently depending on the regional location of the market that they're looking at. So what's happening in one part of the United States doesn't necessarily correlate to what's happening here in Northern Nevada. And even what's happening in Southern Nevada doesn't necessarily correlate to what's happening here in Northern Nevada.
Right.
Right. And I would say also, when you look at the data, we're seeing that properties are selling for 96% of their sales, their list price. So that speaks volumes to what the buyers are actually willing to purchase a home for. So I would, again, just going back to the data.
Well, and I think it's where people say, oh, prices went way down. They're just not getting, sellers aren't just getting like way over asking.
Right.
So prices are still maintaining, they're just not getting way over it. And sellers were constantly listing over the market value, trying to get it. So then when we see price reductions, it's usually just to get them back to where it should have been to start with.
Yeah, they're just inflated.
And you have to
And
remember,
from a seller perspective, they haven't lost a ton of value if they've had their home for a handful of years. They haven't lost value. We saw so much gain through the pandemic and appreciation that they're sitting pretty. So that shouldn't scare your sellers during the listing presentation.
well, and back to educating your clients, you know, they may say, you know, this listing, I saw that it sold for 30,000 under ask or whatnot. We don't know what the motivation and what the, you know, was going on with the seller behind that one. But overall statistics, you know, is what we have to go back to. And you know, they're selling 6% less than what they're listed at. So that's not a huge drop.
Yeah.
See. You have any other looming questions out there?
It's Carrie DeMars and Christy Kuzmic, Chase. Just a comment. You guys are hitting it all on the head. And the market is it seems like it is picking up, like Kirsten said, you know, and but boy, just the relationships, you got to really fine tune them right now, because I foresee, like you said, up in Tahoe, I mean, there's going to be so many people that are going to shift out of this market. Californians, even people that diehard Renoites that may just be like, man, I'm done. So I think that we're probably going to see that. And, you know, like Megan said too, after Super Bowl, I think hopefully it's not going to flood in other ways, but I think the market really shift in a really good way. But having those relationships with even the past clients and those buyers from a couple of years ago, I mean, and the key is our fellow agents. That's it. Having those relationships at one-on-one, because if it gets to multiple offers again, then you know you've got a foothold if you have a quality relationship with that other professional, you know.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carrie.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Carrie. Well, if we don't have any other questions, the goal with this is to have these be short and sweet, around 30 to 45 minutes. And I'd like to invite any one of you, if you would like to participate in the panel or have a topic that you would like to see tackled here in this series, DM any one of the four of us, because we'd love to have your feedback. We will be having these once a month and kind of talking about different things within the market, maybe sometimes have some fun games that are intermixed into this little panel that we have. So we'd love to hear from you. And we thank you all for taking the time and being with us today for our first Move Forward or Move On. And we wish you all a great start to your week and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you,
everyone.
Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.